So this is the reframe for us to keep in mind. I'm not without taste. I'm not some homogenized 3D realization of the algorithm. I am a unique being with unique interests and passions and likes and dislikes and preferences. And they are in me, and I just haven't been in touch with them in a long time. Taste. It's a pretty hot and contentious topic on the internet at the moment. Who has personal taste versus who doesn't? How do you cultivate taste? Who gets to cultivate taste? It's got a real pulse at the moment. I have a lens that I would like to bring to that debate. And I think I'm going to do that on my Substack. So if you're not subscribed, it is Offline with Alison Rice. It's called the same thing as the podcast. I thought I'd keep it really easy. But I'm going to bring a wider lens to, if we are to get out of the debate about taste and move down and inspect the root, what might be there for us. So I'm going to do that and unpack that on the Substack. But I'm here now to really get into the how to cultivate and develop personal taste. So if you're here, if you've landed here and you've had some sort of inner graduation, we could call it some sort of inner recognition, a realizing that, hang on a second, am I living, wearing, breathing, expressing, demonstrating my definition of taste, or at least my personal taste? Or am I actually a product of the algorithm's definition of taste? This in itself is very confronting to potentially have had a realization that, hang on a second, I'm living my life. I'm existing, buying, decision-making from inside the algorithm. When kind of what I'm now potentially realizing and certainly learning and being told is that taste, personal taste, it might actually live outside of the algorithm. Again, this can be really confronting because we may identify as somebody who has really strong personal style or taste preferences, belief systems about things. And it can be confronting to question that or to be called in to question that, which is a really healthy thing, by the way. To kind of look at ourselves, perceive ourselves and observe, hang on. Is this original, authentic? Is this me? Or is this me conformed, contorted, performing for what the algorithm has determined is in, cool, effortless, insert 1,000 other words? Is my life a demonstration of really how well I've been programmed? It's really big. It's really confronting. And so what I'm going to offer us is a bit of an exhale here, an invitation to witness our own innocence, because I just think with this stuff, like, you can't know until you know. But where I'm trying to service is, well, now that you know, what are you going to do with that knowing? Because you can't unknow what you know. And so we create our own resistance to our own realities if we don't take action on what we've now realized. And so I'm here very deliberately to try and give us at least one action step in the direction of how to begin to cultivate, develop. I also want to say call in our personal taste. So I've got this belief that taste is something that you cultivate and develop, but it's also a remembering. And I think that that's what many of us are dealing with this more kind of algorithmic living that we've been doing for the past maybe even 10 years, but most definitely the last, 5 to 7. There was a time and a place in our lives, and I'm talking kind of more millennial. I know Alpha and Gen Z, if you girlies are listening, when have you really ever had an opportunity to live life without the phone, without the internet, without social media? You don't really know that other existence. But for many of us, there has been a time and a place, or at least a season in our lives where we have been more self-determined. And in that self-determination, in that season or that length of time or that period of time, we did have instinct. We did have an inner knowing. We still do. We did have preferences. We did have personal interests, passions. We were excessively curious about random stuff that wasn't like trending. We did have hobbies. Something I can't wait to get into with you this year is cultivating hobbies that don't monetize. Like we do know this material. It's just been a little while since we've been with it. So I sort of wanted to invite you into this opening of, I'm not without taste. I'm not just this robotic, product of this algorithm. My instincts, my preferences, my beliefs, my curiosities, my obsessions, they're in there. Part of what we're now getting into in the how is remembering them, kind of meeting them and greeting them again. So I want to bring you into a very, I think, nourishing, artistic, romantic concept. I think it's a concept. Is it a concept? Maybe we'll call it a concept. Tool. Is it a tool? Maybe it's a life tool. And this is the seasonal curriculum. So I feel like, again, with personal taste, with taste, it can feel like something that's over there. It can feel very elusive. It's something that, by knowing yourself, and it's just something that you're either born with or you're not, like it feels very elitist, I think, at times. But I have this really firm belief that it's in us. And what we're wanting to do is move ourselves into a curriculum, into a new program that gives us ample opportunities to bump into our instinct, to bump into our curiosities, to bump into our obsessions, our passions, the stuff that really lights us up, the things that we have a really kind of discerning eye for, our intuition. So this is the biggest reframe that I want to offer us. It's not that you don't have personal taste. It's that your personal taste at the moment likely is the algorithm's curriculum. What I'm inviting you into is designing your own personal seasonal curriculum that essentially just has a different set of ideas, ideals, activities, and outcomes. So this is the reframe for us to keep in mind. I'm not without taste. I'm not some homogenized 3D realization of the algorithm. I am a unique being with unique interests and passions and likes and dislikes and preferences. And they are in me, and I just haven't been in touch with them in a long time, and I haven't been living a life or at least my way of life hasn't been structured or architected in a way that allows me to make contact with all of those pieces of me that already exist. And if I can get a little bit more self-authored, if I can get back into the driving seat of my life and take a little bit more responsibility for how I spend my time, if I can create avenues and options that I can choose instead of picking up my phone, then I'm going to feel like I'm back on the path that I've just drifted off with this whole phone, algorithm, internet, social thing that I've just drifted off for the past handful of years or more. So we're just getting back on a path that feels a little bit more true. And that can be really energizing to feel like in a time, in a extractive, very oppressive system where we feel like we don't have control, where we feel like we're just surviving, it's very empowering to choose differently. But we need some structure. We need a way to think about it. We need a concept or a tool or something to kind of get wedded to, married to, something to get into a relationship with. So what I want to talk to you about is the beautiful seasonal curriculum. So I want you to start to think about your life broadly in seasons, but also your year in seasons. So we obviously know them: summer, autumn, winter, spring. Now I want you to start to think about nature's kind of more weather-born as well as energetic qualities. How does nature express itself in each of the different seasons? So we know that summer is very yang in energy. It's bright, it's hot, it's dry, it's very in action. The quality of summer is very much in action. It's very externally focused reference. It's very outward. And then you put that in comparison to something like winter, which is more of a yin season, which is very much about introspection, wintering ourselves, looking within, turning within, nourishing ourselves. What's that thing that bears do? Hibernating. Go into hibernation. Winter is a very natural time for nature. We are an expression of nature. Nature is always providing the program for us, by the way, always setting the tone for us energetically. Even the way that leaves fall off trees, they're these visual invitations to do the same thing, to move into this process of restore and regenerate. So winter being this time that is a little bit more internal, is a little bit more, focused on the self. It's also moodier, it's colder, it can potentially be a bit wetter. So what I'm trying to get at here is nature's already done the hard work, really, of showing us this more seasonal way, this more cyclical way of being in the world. How would we now begin to design a personal curriculum that fits the energetic qualities of the season? And could this start to be a way that we make contact with, remember, bump into our taste? In the remembering and the bumping into, we get to deepen, develop, and refine, extend. There's a widening, a broadening of our definition of what we like, what we don't like, etc. So where this starts to get very romantic, I feel, where it starts to really feel like action you're taking in the direction of your version of a little rich life, obviously my entire philosophy for living, is in the curation of that curriculum. So what we don't want to do is be turning back towards the algorithm for our modules, for our lessons, for the material that we're going to lay down in our seasonal curriculum. We don't want to be doing that. When we've got this content out there that's talking about deliberate friction or bringing more friction into your life as a through way to cultivating and developing taste. We can use this here. This is kind of how I interpret friction. Rather than me going to TikTok or Instagram Reels to get inspiration for my seasonal curriculum, my personal curriculum for the next 3 to 4 months, how could I resist that programming, resist that habit, that urge, and look somewhere else instead? That is a more frictionful experience, but it's still a very nourishing experience. So friction doesn't mean hard or bad. That is something that I want to unpack in my Substack article that, if it still feels relevant, I'll do probably next week, about how we've kind of made friction bad, how friction means hard and sort of this feeling of contracting, when actually deliberate friction that we curate and call in, can actually be really nourishing, very additive, very evolutionary, can feel really good to do it. It can almost feel like a restoration process in itself versus something else that we're having to do or that's happening to us. It's like we're not being attacked by friction. We're inviting friction in. And it can feel really, really beautiful. It's all about our framing of friction. And that's what we're going to kind of resolve for ourselves, I think, in this debate about taste. Anyway, that's potentially for the Substack. But so what would it look like for you to talk to your friends and family about their favorite authors, movies, books that changed their life, biographies, artists? Start canvassing taste. So remember, what we're trying to do is bump back into, remember the stuff that we're actually excessively curious about and interested in. That means that we need more inputs. We need more material to have a response to. So one of the easiest things is to start canvassing taste, start understanding what is everybody else in your life excessively curious about, interested in, engrossed in, secretly obsessed with. Who are the people? What are the pieces of work or art that have moved them the most? What are the songs that make them cry? Like, if you're really feeling like I don't even know where to start, then look to the people around you and start having conversations. Really, really healthy to have conversations about taste cultivation and development. I think it's a really interesting conversation to have. So that's one kind of avenue. So this is us now. I know I'm going to do this seasonal curriculum, and I should explain to you, Dodo Allison, what is a seasonal curriculum? What I'm getting at is quite literally a list of books, movies, exhibitions, shows, essays, authors, artists, walking tours, experiences, explorations of concepts or ideas or knowledge systems or philosophies that we're going to bed ourselves down in for a season, for 3 to 4 months. It's a curated list of what we are going to be giving our energy and our time and attention to in the moments that we can, that we have idle time or free time or personal time. So that's what the seasonal curriculum is. It's quite literally a personally programmed curriculum that you write for yourself. That is the thing that you're going to be turning to and tending to for the next 3 to 4 months. I have actually built a Notion template for us. So if you're interested in receiving that from me, you can find it in the episode show notes. But that's a beautiful template that I've built that can at least act as a starting point for you to input your material, your curriculum into. Gives it a home, a really beautiful home. So that's what a seasonal curriculum is. It should be something that you're lit up by, that you're excited to start to move through, be in relationship with, bring through for the next 3 to 4 months. It's something that you're committing yourself to, and dedicating your free and idle time. And we all have different expressions of that, by the way. depending on the shape of our lives, the pace of our lives, our responsibilities, if we're single or partnered, our financial situation, what our life bows down to. We all have a different definition of how much time we have. But I think most of us can recognize that there is time that we put towards scrolling or being on TikTok or Instagram that we could be doing other things, more nourishing, additive, evolutionary things with that time. And that really is the entire premise of the Get Offline brand and world. That's our seasonal curriculum. So where are we going to figure out how, if we're not going to go to the algorithm, to the social platforms to design this curriculum, where else can we go? So we've spoken about our friends and family, of just starting to get back in conversation with the people who are around us. You can also ask people that aren't in your direct circle that maybe you respect or admire or believe they have refined taste or interesting taste or taste that kind of activates something in you, which means that there probably is an alignment in taste. This is a really good thing. Being in conversation with them, talking to them, receiving from them. The other place we can go is community and cultural institutions, the library, the gallery, exhibitions. All of these things are available to us. It's just that we have a belief that we don't have time to go and do these things. This idea that getting offline and going to a gallery is something that's a luxury. I think collectively we're all feeling how kind of sad that is, that the stuff that exists in the human life that is for meaning making, for making sense of things, the stuff that is just beautiful, that doesn't want anything from us, that isn't trying to be productive, that receiving that is now being seen as a luxury because we live in such a extractive, hyper-productive system. It's caused our lives to become acquisition strategies. I talk about this a lot, versus these richer, deeper, smaller, fuller lives, which is what my work is all about, cultivating that for ourselves. So we can also go to places like the library, and depending on where you live, there's going to be a major city near you that is going to have a really beautiful, hopefully, library. Why not make this part of what is so nourishing and romantic about building this seasonal curriculum for yourself? Why not make that a day out where you put on a beautiful outfit that feels like such a vibe for what you're doing? You curate a playlist, you get your favorite coffee or hot drink on the way, and you go and you spend the day immersed in inspiration and ideas and the sort of material that's really going to activate your curiosity. And could you be there in a way that is process orientated versus outcome orientated? Could you go and spend the day at the library and just flick through the books without there needing to be any grand outcome? I am just here seeing and sensing what activates me. And that is the response that we're looking for. We need to just read the body. What book do I open that I stay on? What book did I think I'd read a page and now I'm halfway through? What am I naturally drawn to of all of the different aisles that I could go down? And then I question for myself, am I only going down this aisle because that's what the algorithm has told me is the interesting, cool, sexy, mysterious thing to be seen reading? Or am I authentically interested in this? And an indication of authentic interest would be that you probably haven't seen it on the algorithm. So we can go to these major kind of beautiful, oftentimes grand institutions that start to, doing that in itself is a rich experience that can be part of your seasonal process of designing your curriculum. It could start at the library. And why not grab your girlfriends? Why not all have a half day or a full day where you're going together and sitting down and opening your seasonal curriculum template and beginning to fill it out and have a discussion about it and share ideas, like, that is so rich. This is available to us. We are just so captured by that bloody algorithm and the phones and the notifications and the expectations and the load, really, that we just believe this to be some sort of fantasy world, this luxury existence, when actually living like this, doing things like this is our birthright. This is not a luxury. This should be the stuff that if we can and if it's safe to and if we're able to, that we begin to prioritize in our lives. So the final thing I wanted to add in as a where do I go to get the inspiration to design my seasonal curriculum? I want you to have a think about the artist date. So The Artist's Way is a very, very popular, beautiful, iconic book by Julia Cameron. And it's about kind of reaching the artist within. There's this idea that to be creative or to bring creativity into your life, you have to be working as a creative or practicing as an artist. But part of what Julia articulates so beautifully is there is an inner artist within everyone. And there is a way of living. There is things that we can do to bring out that inner artist and to bring more creativity into our lives. Because we are creativity. We are creative intelligence in motion. We are born from creation. Literally, everyone is essentially creativity in human form. It's just that some of us, likely in our professional expression, work in more creative fields, but we are all fundamentally made from the same stuff. We are all creative. So one of the suggestions that she makes that is one of the most popular parts of the book is the artist date. So what would it look like for you to program this into your curriculum, but really this is about your schedule? Could you calendar block? Could you have an artist date every week that is putting you in contact with the ideas, the inspiration, the concepts, the philosophies, the film themes, the genres, the activities, shows, you name it. Let's just think like culture in general. If you have this weekly artist date in place for yourself, and the way Julia talks about it is it's not really for you to do with anyone else. It's you in solitude doing something for the inner artist. You will start to bump into stuff that you want to put on your seasonal curriculum. So it might not just be about going to that particular exhibition that's on at the gallery. The artist date might be going to the exhibition, but it's what you sense, what resonates, what you realize when you're witnessing the art, when you're at the exhibition, what piques your curiosity, that then it's kind of a pulling of the thread. That's what lives in the seasonal curriculum, in my opinion. Maybe it is the particular art form or picking up the same sort of practice and trying that for 3 months. Maybe there's a specific brush technique that was used and you want to learn to paint like that or draw like that. The artist date inspires a practice, a modality. I mean, I'm using all these words I know that lives in the seasonal curriculum. So what a nourishing thing that we can do for ourselves. And you know what? It's not an expensive thing. It doesn't require all the money in the world or all the time in the world. All we're really doing is designing this 3 to 4 months program for ourselves that is going to be additive, evolutionary, but ultimately is going to put us back in touch with our instincts, our discernment, our preferences, our own knowings about what we like and what we don't like, how we want to be expressing ourselves in the world, the principles that our life bows down to. Like, whoa, it's like such big stuff. So I hope that you can feel by now that taste development or cultivation of personal taste, it isn't this thing necessarily that's kind of out there. It's actually another homecoming. it is making contact with what's always kind of been there, what is beneath the algorithmic programming, and making contact with that again, flexing that muscle again, and then beginning to develop and refine from there. Develop, refine, extend, broaden, widen. It just gets richer and richer and richer. But we do have to start somewhere. And this personal seasonal curriculum that is in honor of, respectful of nature's own seasons. So we're really starting to think about the tone, the qualities of my summer seasonal curriculum versus my winter seasonal curriculum. So how might I program this to the level of tone and mood? Rich, rich, rich. Honestly, this is available to us. And so I hope you're feeling really activated listening to this and you can't wait to go and design your own seasonal curriculum for the next season that's coming up. As I was saying at the front, I do have a bit more to say about the debate about taste. I do see a role for myself in helping us get out of the debate and the argument and the parts of taste that feel elitist in a way, the parts of taste cultivation that make us feel agitated, offended, or angry, and really down into inspecting the root underneath all of that that's kind of sprouting at the top. What is actually available to us in these really expressed moments in social conversation and discourse? What's actually being revealed to us? And again, I'll go back to my last episode. How can we use the data that life is giving us as an indication of what we actually value and what we believe to be meaningful and important and right? So this is actually where that anger audit really comes to life. This is an expression of the anger audit. So I want to get into that on Substack. Again, it's offline with Alison Rice if you're not subscribed. So I hope this has felt really nourishing for you. I can't wait to continue unpacking some of these topics and pillars with you. The cultivating and deepening and developing of our personal taste. I'm going to be getting into hobby cultivation as well. How do we begin to explore a hobby practice that doesn't monetize, that doesn't live on Instagram, that we're not just doing for the aesthetic? I'm also going to start to talk more about really practical ways that we can become less digitally focused in our lives. I don't believe it's going away. I'm not asking anyone to go off grid with this whole get offline thing, but I do have some really compelling ideas of how we can create this little rich life that doesn't have as much space and time for the phone. So how do we create an existence that is less phone, internet, social media dominant and that feels more kind of wholly and uniquely our own, and that is, you know what, enjoyed and lived into and expressed in more of an offline nature and experience? I'd love to hear what you think, and if you've got any other ideas for where we can go outside of the algorithm to get inspiration for our seasonal curriculum, then I would absolutely love to learn from you.